In this short video, I'm going to explain the changes I recently made to my Boba Fett helmet templates. This way, if you've already started a project with the old templates, you'll know what the differences are. Also, I'll go over some of the basic details of the templates. The first changes pertain to the first level of the ear modules, both left and right, and deal with a detail that I managed to overlook when I first made the templates. In fact, not only did I overlook them, I intentionally omitted them. But recently I came across an image from The Empire Strikes Back of Boba Fett talking to Darth Vader, and you can clearly see the same trim detail behind the ears as you see on Jango's helmet. So to avoid having you make the same last-minute addition to your helmet that I did in the video, I've added them directly to the ear modules here. One quick detail about installation. When you glue these to the helmet, make sure that the top of these details hit at precisely a ½ inch down from the seam between the dome and the side of the helmet. That way the ½ inch wide piece of trim that runs along the back of the helmet can lay right up against them. It's more important for that to happen than for the bottom of the ears to line up with the bottom of the helmet. The next change pertains to the front of the helmet. I don't like the way the top forward edge of the upper cheeks ended up right up against the lower outside edge of the mandible trim. It ended up looking like a 5mm step down from the mandibles to the cheek, and always had to be smoothed out with either a filler or a sander. In the video, I talked about making the mandibles 5mm wider to cover it up, but that would have affected the appearance too much. So if I couldn't move the mandibles, I'll move the edge of the upper cheeks out 5mm. That way, the mandible trim can stay the same size, but still cover up the edge. That makes the mandibles themselves fairly thin, but since I usually leave most of the foam under the T-visor intact, it shouldn't affect the structure of the helmet. And the mandible trim will cover everything up and leave a nice clean drop from the mandibles down to the lower cheeks. That brings us to the mandible trim itself. In the original templates, I rounded off the ends using measurements from the left ear module so that the trim would flow cleanly into the ears. It seemed like a good idea at the time, but I guess I forgot the right ear module is quite a bit taller than the left, so I decided I'd better fix that. That was great, but when I was finally able to try the templates out for myself, I found that due to the extra thickness of the foam, the circumference of the helmet was more than the templates were originally made for, and as a result, the mandible trim wouldn't make it all the way to the ear modules. I ran across this with my first helmet and extended the template, but apparently never changed the digital file, so that definitely needed to be changed as well. One of the things I noticed when I was researching the paint scheme was that the T-visor on the actual prop reached further down the sides of the helmet than my T-visor did. So with the added length of the mandibles available, there was room to extend the T-visor the same amount. That should add to the overall aesthetics of the helmet. Now the problem with that is, you can't extend the T-visor space on the mandibles without doing the same thing to the actual front of the helmet. So, back we go to the face of the helmet to extend the cutout for the T-visor. And I can't do that without moving more of the template to the front pages. And then I needed to make room in case someone wanted to enlarge the templates. Now we can move on to the rest of the changes. Well, with me having to move more of the template to the front pages, I need to lose that material from the back pages. Note that we now have the same 5mm addition to the cheeks as on the front of the helmet. I also moved the marker for the air filters to where it should be to fit the dome templates. Now remember, they're just there to help you get an idea for placement. You should use the actual templates of the air filter when marking your foam. Because things rarely go as planned, I left some extra length so you know you'll have enough material. But just in case you're luckier than most, here are a couple of notches to help you line the back up straight, just in case everything works out. Now, for the ear modules, I've made quite a few changes that I think will really increase the accuracy to the actual prop, as well as improve the overall aesthetics of the helmet. For some even more current information regarding proper construction of the ear modules, see my new video, Important Boba Fett Ear Module Update. I know it's a great title, right? But it contains information that you'll wish you had if you miss it. Most of the changes are to the right ear module. Other than the addition of the winglet, the first level stays pretty much the same, consisting of a single piece of 1/8" wood. But the second and top levels go through some serious changes. First, the second level gets split into upper and lower parts, and both are shortened in the process. The top level also ends up a little shorter. Beyond that, the upper part stays 1/4" wood and is glued onto the first level, lining it up at the top. The lower part gets bumped up to a 1/2" thick piece of wood, or 2 1/4" pieces glued together, and then treated just like it is in the video, only now it's twice as thick, so the angles will be steeper. Also, by splitting the upper and lower parts, you no longer need to use a chisel on this part, and can use a file, rasp, or sanding stick, just like the other bevels. Then glue the lower part onto the bottom half of the first level. The top level is mostly worked just as it is on the video. The difference is in the thickness of the wood. This part stays a 1/4", but here it gets a second layer of wood so that it's a 1/2" thick. In other words, say this is the 1/4" thick piece of wood you're cutting the top level from. Go ahead and mark your wood using your template, but before you cut it out, add a second smaller piece of 1/4" wood under it, like this. Make sure it lines up precisely with this part only. Then, cut it out normally. Don't forget to bevel the underside here. The bevel should line up with the other bevel here so that they run parallel with a small gap in between. The left ear module stays pretty much the same, except it's also bumped up to a 1/2" thick. The resulting steeper angled sides will add a lot of dimension to the helmet. For the upper cheeks or cheekbones, it's just a matter of adding that same 5mm, moving the attachment point up under the mandible trim. Another thing that I fixed on my physical template, but not the digital file, and didn't notice until I was able to physically test the template with foam, was the addition of some material here. I don't know why, but there was just a gap under the lower cheek that needed to be filled. And lastly, I just added a line to show where I would start to bevel the sides of the rangefinder into 1/8 inch on each side, so that the outside edge is 1/4 inch narrower than the rest of the rangefinder. That's it for the changes and why I made them. But let me take this opportunity to point out that on each page of my templates, I've included a rule so that if you print the templates out at 100%, the inches should line up with your ruler at home, or at least most of the numbers. I've noticed some slight inconsistencies with rulers and some of the numbers being a little off. And if you're reducing or enlarging the templates, the rules should at least line up with each other. Also note that I've tried to give you enough room so that you can enlarge these quite a bit and still have them fit on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. You might lose the rule or the name, but the template should still be there. That's it for this video. I hope it helps you understand what I did and why, and if it did, give it a thumbs up. If not, don't hesitate to ask any questions in the comments area. I'll do my best to help. If you haven't already, subscribe so you can stay up to date with my latest videos, and check back often because it really helps out the channel. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next video.